discussing environmental cleaning and disinfection and how it relates to community support services. This presentation is going to be, I don't want to say basic, but very generally based on how we clean up our areas in terms of CSSs, washrooms, how we clean up our kitchens, how we clean up generally within our workspaces as well. So it's not going to go heavily into the long-term care, retirement home aspect or community CLS aspect of things. Just going to give you a general basic lowdown. Sorry, of about what to do when cleaning and disinfecting your regions. And eventually, we're going to touch upon some newer things towards the end, such as new technologies that we've dealt with. So again, just as an overview, it's going to be a 45-minute presentation on environmental cleaning and disinfection product review. We're going to talk about label review. We're going to talk about documentation. Then we're going to get into cleaning and disinfection processes. We're going to talk about equipment audits in terms of process and cart audits. And then I did not put it underneath here. We're going to talk about new technologies. So foggers and electrostatic sprays, which I've been getting quite a few questions about over the last few years, and really interesting questions in that a lot of people do use it depending on the type of organization that you're in. So a note, I just want to let everyone know, I do not recommend or endorse the use of any specific products. I am going to have some products here that I'm going to be showing, but I don't endorse them. Please consult Health Canada's drug product database online query regarding products licensed for use in Canada. So if anyone's ever looking for the websites on Health Canada website, you can double check to see whether or not the product that you're using is something that's recognized in Canada, being that everything should have a DIN. So again, just go through the basics about what cleaning and disinfection is. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, this is very basic deal," but I'm like, you know what? It is a basic. Sometimes the words are interchangeably used, and I understand that it's done incorrectly, and I do it sometimes as well. But cleaning basically is the physical removal of any organics or materials, so blood secretion, microorganisms. Wiping physically removes rather than kills microorganisms, and we pretty much use water, detergent, and mechanical action just to clean. So it's like when we wash our hands or we wipe down tables, we're wiping out maybe with water or soap. That's just the cleaning process. And the really important part, which is the disinfection, is the part that comes out after when we use our products that we use to disinfect the areas that we've just cleaned. So disinfection, just to go in terms of meanings, is the inactivation of disease-producing microorganisms. Disinfection does not destroy bacterial spores. The item or surfaces must be free from visible soil interference. So the reason why we clean is to ensure that we can disinfect properly as well. So if I don't clean before I disinfect and I put a product over a dirty surface, what tends to happen is all that product's ability or activation is being used on the organics or on the dirt that's there. So by cleaning and removing the dirt first of all, it clears the area of any organics. And then what happens is the disinfection now process works much better and works period, because the area has been cleaned of any dirty objects or dirty debris or dirt or anything that's visibly soiled as well. So cleaning and disinfection products, what do we use? So again, I know you've heard me say this a lot of times. Every environmental cleaning or disinfectant product should have a DIN, as I mentioned at the beginning, and that DIN is associated with Health Canada. All products are sent over there. They do their investigation to determine whether or not it does what it says on the label, and they prescribe it a DIN number or MPN number if it's a natural product at all. It also has to be used within an expiry date. So there's an expiry date for all products that we use, and as long as you're using it within the expiry date, you can be rest assured that it's going to work in terms of its disinfection attributes or its claims on its labels. You have also one-step cleaners and disinfectants, which are the wipes, which a lot of us do use. And we also have to ensure that the contact times are met. So 5 minutes or less is what we typically ask for in any healthcare setting. And the reason for that is the inanimate surface or the fomite or the object that you're disinfecting should be wet for at least those 5 minutes, or even less, even better. So I like to use disinfectants that have a 1 minute contact, because I can definitely rest assured that that object is going to remain wet for 1 minute. So always be assured to understand what the contact times are, and then whether or not it's wipe or squirt format. So we don't like to spray. We don't use spray bottles, because what you're doing now is you're aerosolizing the bacteria or the dirt, and it's not a good thing. So we usually typically wipe all the time when it comes to disinfecting as well. Again, when it comes to product selection, I'm going to let everyone know I have a lot of stuff written on some of these slides. I like because I know my material. I'm just going to go through things fairly quickly. But again, I will share the slide deck with everybody if you wanted to after the fact. But again, product selection, all products should have a DIN or MPN number. And again, as I said, it's all attributed to Health Canada. So here's the website for Health Canada, Health Canada's product database as well. And also the website for the disinfection for evidence for the use against COVID if you want to ensure that it works against COVID-19, which everything that's out there does work against COVID-19 at the end of the day. And as I said, you got to review the contact time, ensuring that's at least 5 minutes or less, and also take into consideration other issues such as, do I have to wear PPEs? There are some disinfectants where you have to wear gloves to handle the wipes, whether it's a one-step versus a two-step product, and then determining the pros and cons of each product. Does it work? I have fabric. Does it work on fabric? Does it work on wood surfaces? Does it work on metal? Things like that have to be looked at on the labels as well. And then what I like to do, and I like to push out to everybody, is contact your current chemical supply company to discuss options as well. They're really good. Whenever I deal with long-term care homes or hospitals when it comes to disinfectants, I like to contact the chemical supplier because a lot of times they have a lot of information that that helps you to determine which disinfectant will work for you as well as your IPAC person. So again, product selection, just in terms of next steps here, again, contact times, mixing, whether or not it's being mixed, if it's applicable for mixing. A lot of times you have to ensure that the mixing criteria is met for it to be working, for the disinfectant to be mixed properly. So always follow manufacturer's directions. And again, as I talked about, PPE requirements have to be looked at as well. On top of those things as well, expiration date, which you talked about, shelf life as well. How long can the product last on the shelf once opened and once mixed, if diluted? So, for instance, when you mix in chlorine bleach with water, that doesn't last all day. That dissolves and just becomes water after a while when left out for over a day, over 24 hours. So you got to understand whether or not the product that you decide to use can be mixed and how long does it last after being mixed. And also reviewing the safety data sheet, ensuring, as I mentioned earlier on, whether or not I have to wear PPEs to mix or whether I have to wear PPEs to use the product as well. And then what I also like to make mention of is test strips. A lot of times when we mix these materials and mix these chemicals, we need to ensure that we've met the right parts per million for it to work, for this action to occur, for the chemicals to work. If you're using something that is being diluted or being mixed, a lot of times there are dilution machines that do the diluting for you, which is great. But what we like to recommend that everyone do all the time is ensure that you're getting test strips from your chemical supplier for the chemical that you're using. So every time you mix a batch of chemicals for cleaning and disinfecting, ensure that it's met its parts per million criteria, ensuring that it works. Those strips do work, and a lot of times when you use dilution materials or machines, what tends to happen in some cases is they break down. They break down sometimes, and you don't know unless you test to ensure that the chemicals that are being used are mixed properly as well. And sometimes that's the only way that you're going to know that it's broken down and it's not working as well. So definitely take those things into consideration. When dealing with cleaners, again, they break down grease and remove organic material, as I mentioned early on, used separately before using disinfectants and can be purchased with cleaner and disinfectants combined in a single product. And again, disinfectants have chemicals that kill the organisms to be applied to surfaces that have been cleaned already. They have a DIN, but there's also disinfectant wipes, which we do use, which have, again, cleaners and disinfectants in them. So 1 or 2 step disinfectant wipes. And may become dry due to fast drying. Property should be discarded if they become dry as well, and not recommended for heavily soiled surfaces. So those disinfectant wipes that we use, when a surface is heavily soiled, it's still recommended that we clean them with water and soap prior to us putting or wiping them down with the disinfectant wipes as well. Sorry, that's kind of a repetition. So disinfectant labels, review, and how to. Um, Again, labels. have to ensure that you follow. Oh, sorry, always follow the labels and follow manufacturer's instructions. So whether or not the disinfectant you have is a pre-cleaning required before using, what is the contact time, ensure you know what that, how long must the surface stay wet, what PPE is required for use with the product. Is there a rinse step required after using the product and on what surfaces? So in some cases, you have to understand whether or not there's a rinse cycle or a rinse process. Some chemicals tend to be very harsh. No glutaraldehyde and other chemicals such as that tend to be very harsh. And a lot of times, there's always a rinsing process. That's a attributed with that chemical as well, because left in the environment, it may work really well as a disinfectant or a chemical sterilant or sterilizer, but at the same time, that chemical poses another health issue as well if left without being wiped off. So those things have to be determined as well. And again, I'm not going to repeat myself over and over because I've seen it before, not in our facilities, but out there in the community and hospitals before, is ensure the product is within the date or that it's not expired as well. Um, so I'm just going to give you a couple products that we do use and what we look for in these. So just a review of products that we use. I've shown this millions of times. It's a really good product, and the reason why I use these slides is because these are things that we are still using. This is Lysol, which carries benzyl ammonium chloride inside. It has a DIN number, has a contact time of 6 minutes. Us being community support services agencies, we're still healthcare facilities. I usually recommend 5 minutes and below. But with this product, PPE, still gloves are required. Shelf life not available, but supplier does provide a review label that tells you what it is, and again also tells you how to mix the product. So special product consideration: 2 ounces per gallon of warm water, not food graded, sanitized at 60 seconds, and must rinse. So some of these products that we do use as well, they're good products that can be used as sanitizers. And sanitizers is just again cleaning the surface. It doesn't necessarily disinfect the area, but it sanitizes the area. And usually the contact time for sanitization tends to be a little bit less than cleaning and disinfecting contact times as well. Another one, which I like using, I see this all over the place. It's really good. Accelerated hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, I like to call it. Again, DIN number. This one has a contact time of 3 minutes, which is great. No PPEs are required. Has expiration dates and then special considerations, which you should always review. Not food grade, sanitize at 30 seconds and must rinse. Wear gloves if cleaning body and blood fluids, which we typically would do when dealing with blood or body fluids. Pre-clean heavily soiled areas, which we just discussed, and then 2-in-1 product, which is a one-step product, so cleaner and a disinfectant as well. Just heavily soiled areas should be wiped down first before use as well. And again, just in reviewing the labels as well. This is just a bit of a focus on this label. So to disinfect non-critical pre-cleaned instruments and medical devices, there's direction there as well. That would be, so this preempt RTU could also be used for cleaning other devices as well, which is really good. And a lot of places, I used to do a lot of Medi-Spa inspections when I worked in Toronto and some of the health units as well. And that tends to be used fairly frequently when cleaning certain equipments as well. So if you do have a Medi-Spa within your organization, it's good to ensure you use some of the better disinfectants to ensure that the utensils and equipments that you're using, if it cannot be sterilized, is properly cleaned and disinfected as well. And again, at the back of these, they tell you whether or not they're virucidal, bactericidal, fungicidal, tuberculocidal. What I like to tell a lot of people is if I see tuberculocidal, that means it's a really good disinfectant. It's going to kill most things, being that some of these bacteria, tuberculosis, um, oh my God, my sciences just came out of my head, is another one that we use for tattoo parlors. I just can't remember. These organisms tend to be very strong and very hardy. So if you can get some of the tuberculocidal, that's going to be a really good disinfectant as well for use. And at the back here, I just put this here that these are some of the organisms that some of the disinfectants do kill. I always tell people a lot of times when I discuss cleaning and disinfectants, a lot of people are like, oh, HIV. I have to. I'm like, HIV is extremely easy to kill and it will die by itself in the environment if left in some type of bodily fluid or blood that's left out. Our biggest thing is hepatitis. Hepatitis can last days on surfaces and is a very hardy, very strong virus. It can live outside of the body for a very long period and needs cleaning and disinfectant for it to be handled properly. So again, these are just some of the contact times for some of the disinfectants that we do use, and showing that they are easier to kill and much hardier. Making disinfectants from concentrates. So we talked about dilution factors and diluting chemicals properly. I won't go into this particularly too in depth, because a lot of times you just got to follow the manufacturer's instructions to dilute. And a lot of times, if you're using something that needs dilution, you have a diluting machine that does that for you automatically. And hence why I said getting test strips helps to ensure it's being diluted properly. But when diluting products from concentrate, follow the manufacturer's instructions, as I said. So use handling, use, this should be dealt with whether whether or not it's the correct disinfectant for this usage. Handling of it as well, is it being handled properly? Dilution has to be taken into consideration. The PPE is required to dilute it. Chlorine bleach, very easily diluted in some water, but still at the same time is chlorine, and it is, or bleach, I should say, and gloves should be worn. Make a new solution as often. So as I said already, shelf life is a big issue when dealing with diluted chemicals. You want to ensure that once it's diluted, that this chemical can be used for however long you need it to be used for. So again, as I said, chlorine bleach or chlorine or chemical bleach, that household bleach that you use maybe to put in a spray bottle with water. I've seen in many places people try to use it day after day after day on the same spray bottle. I'm like, that's just water now. That's been water for the last 2 or 3 days now. So you have to ensure that you have an understanding of what the life shelf or shelf life of that organism, or sorry, shelf life of that chemical is, or that disinfectant is, to ensure that when you're using it after maybe having used it once or twice, that it's still the disinfection criteria or surfactants are still there as well. Equipment need to verify concentration. I mentioned this already, ensuring you have test strips or auto dispensers or measuring cups as well. And labeling the diluted bottle, ensuring that under WHMIS, workplace labels are on the bottle. So date when it was mixed should be on that bottle as well. And then also checking expiry date of concentrated products too is a big one. And this is just an example of, I know everyone's seen it, of one of dilution or diluting machines that are used out there. And these things are great to use. They send out what you need. You follow manufacturer's directions or instructions, and you will have no problems at all. It makes life much easier than having to do it yourself. And again, this is just a product that we use. Again, benzalkonium chloride. Quats is what we like to use, or what we like to call them. We got a DIN on this. We have a contact time as well, which is about 10 minutes. PPEs, gloves, and eyes protection. Shelf life not available, but supplier will provide. And again, as a sanitizer, it has to be mixed at 200 parts per million, which makes it food gradable as well. As I touched on bleach use is still good. Having I've worked in all facets of public health. I've been in restaurants, and I know restaurants or kitchens like to use the bleach, which is not a bad idea as well. It's very easy and very cheap and very effective. But you have to understand bleach is not a cleaning agent as well. Surfaces must be clean in order for bleach to disinfect. So, as I said earlier on, bleach is fine to use, but if air is heavily soiled, it must be cleaned and disinfected. It must be cleaned, sorry, prior to being used, or prior to being disinfected. Sorry, I apologize. So that area has to be cleaned and then disinfected with a chlorine bleach. You can use a spray bottle, but again, as I said, using test strips to ensure that you meet the parts per million that's needed for that to be high level or meet a low level disinfectant, that needs to be weighed in and dealt with regularly as well. And just before use, as it loses, diluted bleach with water has to be used regularly and has to be made regularly too as well, because after 24 hours, it has no disinfectant purposes whatsoever. Documentation. So, you have to understand whether or not it's a one-step or two-step product prior. You got to understand the shelf life of the product as well, and you have to understand whether or not you're going to be cleaning or disinfecting a high touch surface. So checklists have to be used as well. List and sign off. So what I used to do when I used to inspect facilities is look for some form of documentation stating that this room or this area or this facility has been cleaned. And we like to look to see what's been cleaned and see that's been checked off and see that someone has gone by and determined whether or not that was cleaned and disinfected properly as well. So some form of audits as well. That tends to be a regular issue sometimes with certain places, not our facilities, but out there in the community. When I go to certain places, again, not our community support service agents, but I'm talking about in the past. So this is what example of what we look for in terms of what's been disinfected, so our doorknob, date and time, and then a staff sign off as well. And sometimes you like to see a signature at the bottom of the actual sheet, or if you're using a computer device, stating that that has been audited as well to ensure that has met the criteria and has been cleaned and disinfected as per. As well, in terms of documentation, we would like to double check and ensure that the disinfectants that you're using when they're being mixed that you've tested them as well for their concentration requirements. So with this product ABC, shelf life mix new every 7 days. You have a concentration required of 200 parts per million, and you have a date that it was checked and made, and whether or not there's corrective actions or whether or not staff has signed off as well. This is things that we look for to ensure one that the organization has been cleaned and disinfected, and two, the disinfectant that you're using was checked to ensure that it met the requirements for it to be considered a disinfectant as well. And that's when you deal with mixing of equipment as well. So you performed your due diligence. So it's what I like to use in terms of occupational health and safety as well. Cleaning and disinfection process. Now, again, I know a lot of people understand what to do, and it's very noted. I see it all the time. Everyone does well in knowing exactly how to clean, what the process is, and that's when cleaning and disinfecting services. Visibly soil areas must be cleaned with soap and water first, which I do see, and then when doing the process or performing the process of cleaning and disinfecting. I'm sorry, always move from low to high touch surfaces. So low touch surfaces to very dirty surfaces being the last areas that you do. Washrooms would be considered last places that you'll do. Clean to dirty, so cleaner area to dirty areas. Again, washroom would be the dirty area. And then top to bottom, get the dirt from above and move it down. And then the bottom area would be clean and disinfected last as well. If you're in a long-term care home, if a resident space is shared, clean all surfaces of each resident area separately as well. And treat privacy curtains, if we're dealing with CLSs here, retirement homes, as high-touch services as well. No double dipping of cloth and compatibility, compatibility with surfaces as well, finishers or materials as well. So ensuring that the disinfectant that you're using is compatible with the finish of the materials that you're using. So if it's cloth, if it's hard metal, if it's ceramics, ensuring that these areas can be cleaned and disinfected with that disinfectant. Do not top up product bottles, so clean the bottle out before refilling. Oh, these are really good ones here. So typically, if you're going to reuse a bottle as a spray bottle, that bottle should be cleaned and disinfected prior to remixing as well. Don't just take it and put in new disinfectant in that. It should be cleaned out, washed and cleaned, dried, and then new disinfectant put in after that, after the fact. Do not use a hand wash and sink to clean. Yeah, so a sink that you typically wash your hands in, which is allocated, designated as a hand wash sink, should not be used to disinfect or clean out disinfectant bottles or used for putting the disinfectants together as well. And then topping up bottles will under diluted the product. So I've seen this before where you have a bottle, you've been using it all day. Instead of going back and remixing, person will take the disinfectant and pour it inside the bottle. Don't do that because you get the pp parts per million, or the efficacy of that may be higher or maybe lower depending on what you're putting in to dilute the chemical disinfectants as well. So be considerate of that as well. Environmental cleaning process. So simple supplies. This is just the process. Assemble your supplies, clean your hand using ABHR. So always remember to wash and clean hands before using anything. Put on your PPEs if it's required. Assess what you're going to be doing, and then start the cleaning and disinfection. So as I said earlier on, clean to dirty, high to low, top to bottom. Bathrooms are always last. Use a fresh cloth for each room, no double dipping, and consider separate cloth for the washroom or bathroom, which not consider, I would say make sure that you use a separate cloth for the washroom at all times. And don't ever reuse that bathroom cloth for anything else after the fact as well. Disposal, separate dirty clothes or cloths, sorry, separate dirty cloths from clean cloths. Replace garbage bags, remove non-hazardous garbage, replenish supplies. And again, when you finish everything, perform hand hygiene, remove the PPE and discard, and then perform hand hygiene again right after the fact. So how we doff if you're wearing PPEs. Now, low touch areas are the ones that we consider as minimal contact with hands and require cleaning on a regular basis and when visibly soiled. So examples of that would be the floors, the walls, mirrors, and chairs. Those are what we consider as low touch areas. And the high touch areas are what we consider as exam beds, doorknobs, drawers, elevator buttons, light switches, toilet levers. Any item or surface that has frequent contact with your hands, those require more cleaning and disinfectants at all times as well. Just an example, this is more or less a long-term care home or congregate living setting as well in terms of high to low and where you would have to disinfect. And again, as I said, low touch areas would be done first, and then we move our way to high touch areas after the fact as well. So example would be window sills, beds, and then washrooms being the last place that we disinfect. All right, what do we use for cleaning and disinfecting? So we can use mop heads, or mops, I should say, which have to be changed and laundered daily or when dirty, dried before storage, and do not store mop heads wet at all. Toilet brushes must be replaced on a regular basis or disposable. Do not store toilet brushes wet and dedicate to residence room as well. And cleaning cloths has to be specific to the task. Replaced after each resident room or each area has been cleaned. So if you're going to use a cloth for the washroom, it has to be replaced before going anywhere else or has to be discarded immediately. Change when no longer saturated with solution after cleaning heavily soiled areas. Separate clean and dirty cloths and consider color coding cloths. For example, red would be washrooms or bathrooms and green would be bedrooms or general office areas. Sponges are single use and no spray bottles at all should be used whatsoever. I will touch on this a little bit later, but there's also electrostatic misters versus fogging, in addition to manual cleaning and disinfectant, not instead of. Follow manufacturer's instructions, which we'll get into a little later. Review if there's a re-entry time at all when being used, and approved products only. PPE requirements should be used. Some require N95s. I will touch on this a little bit later on the presentation and at the end when I discuss new technologies as well. Now, after everything's been said and done, I talked about audits. So audits should be done. What an audit is, it's going to review the process with the staff. So what was used, how it was used, and when it was used. So what was used, what the product was, what the surfaces, what the tools were, how the order of flow of cleaning, and when. When did you change the cloth? When did you change the mops? And what was the frequency? Um, and sometimes we like to call it just in time feedback and coaching. So if I were to do an audit, I see something that needs to get dealt with, I would let that person know at the time, this is what I saw, this is how it should have been dealt with. This is the process, you know, nice about it. And then documentation as well. There should be documentation that audits were performed. Frequency of audits, what we tend to do, one of my jobs as an inspector as well, is I look to see that's done daily. And when I say a daily audit, someone's checked to ensure that the areas were clean and disinfected like disinfected properly, and the areas were properly taken care of as per the process or as per policies and procedures as well. And then IPAC Hub can also help support any issues, any questions that you may have at the end of the day. This is just a sample room audit checklist, something I've used in the past. And it's a great checklist that can be used by staff or by management or by inspectors as well. So cart audits as well. I like to do cart audits. So on the cart, we like to ensure that the cart is cleanable. Clean items are stored separately from the dirty items. There's alcohol-based hand rub sanitizer that's available on the cart for the client, for the staff member to wash their hands or to sanitize their hands. Chemicals can be locked or stored securely on the cart. There's a SDE sheets are available, safety data sheets. Label cleaning products, so the products all have their labels on it, and a clean carts cleaned at the end of each day. So each cleaning cart should be cleaned at the end of the day as well. Last thing you want to do is be walking around with a dirty cart throughout the facility. Now, in terms of new technologies, what's out there, as I said, I was going to talk about misters and electrostatic misters or foggers and sprayers as well. These are all considered as newer technologies. These technologies are designed as supplements. So they are not a replacement to cleaning and disinfecting at all. What they are, I like to say they're adjunct to it. So you still need to clean and disinfect or clean the area, and probably disinfect it with a backup of using a mister, a fogger, electrostatic sprayer at the end of the day as well. So these new technologies may be useful as part of the comprehensive cleaning and disinfection program, but as an adjunct to manual cleaning and disinfection procedures. And again, to give an example here, for example, when used as the final step to a deep clean procedure, but are not recommended following each patient contact transport. It's also very important to review each product under consideration for use with an infection control or infection prevention and control professional or an environmental services professional. So ensure that you're using the right chemical for that machine needs to be in a requirement as well. Although newer technologies such as hydrogen peroxide, vapor, ozone gases, superoxidized water, UV technologies are new, and it sounds really great. Again, there are other benefits and other things that you have to weigh. You got to weigh in the benefits if it's required for your task. So I've seen in quite a few hospice that I've been into. That's what they use as a terminal clean. And what I've always recommended is if you're going to use electrostatic or fogger for terminally cleaning an area, I would still heavily require that you go into that area, clean it, and disinfect it manually, followed by a fogger or electrostatic sprayer if that's what you want to use as a tertiary way of cleaning or secondary way of cleaning as well and disinfecting that area. Again, as I said, remember that the area has to be manually cleaned prior to using these technologies. And then again, completion of fogging process can vary from 1 to 5 hours. It does take some time. A UV light technology has a shorter disinfecting time. However, the evidence is unclear for the elimination of fungi and spores. And with UV ray, the only thing that's going to get disinfected is that area that is saturated by that UV ray. That's the only disadvantage of UV rays is if you have an area or place that has a great surface area, and those UV rays or those lights can't get into that area because of the lining or the way that it's shaped. It's not properly disinfected or it's not properly disinfected at all. You still need to get in there with a cleaner, manually clean it, manually ensure that the area is disinfected, and then maybe use a UV ray, understanding that that area has already been disinfected and cleaned manually as well. There is some evidence that certain types of fogging may be less effective on vertical surfaces than on horizontal surfaces as well. And there's evidence, as I said, that UV lights do not work in shadowed areas. So as I just originally said, if it's an area that's shadowed, UV ray doesn't get into it, it's not being cleaned or disinfected. A lot of these technologies are still under investigation, are still being looked at as well. So stay tuned. And then you also have to associate the cost with use of additional technologies. Some places it may be prohibitive when considering which indications for use would reasonably occur in CSS settings. So whether or not it's required there, whether or not it would work in what you're doing as well, all those situations need to be assessed properly. And also the occupational health and safety considerations associated with some of these technologies too. So again, as I said, these new technologies are really great to use. It's just I find it just adds a added work to it because at the end of the day, you still need to get in there, you still need to clean, you still need to disinfect the area as well. And that's just a tertiary or a secondary mode of cleaning and disinfectant is electrostatic or fogger that would be used. And that's pretty much in terms of the new technologies that are out there. I know we do have a PIDAC document, which is really great, which has been updated as well. If you like, I can also send that to you, which gets into some of these technologies as well and what the province recommends for cleaning and disinfecting, which is a great read too as well. I know it's a lot of pages, but it's a great read when trying to figure out what's best and what suits what suits your needs as well in community support services agencies. And I think with that being said, I think that is it.